St. Francis of Assisi in, I don't have a shot. So you ask, well, what about the person? What about the good, faithful Methodist their whole life who only ever prayed a prayer? What about the atheist? The one who's driving down the highway and sees the semi going the wrong way, has nowhere else to go, has nothing else to do, and with the last crying breath, they cry out, God, save me. What about the soldier in the foxhole who sees the missile coming, who knows there's nowhere to go, who knows this is it, who for the first time in their life cries out, Jesus, I need you. Do I believe those people aren't in heaven because there wasn't water for them nearby? Of course not. But what I do believe is that for some of you, the opportunity exists for you to take the step, to make the commitment, to follow him now. Now listen, there are people in the tradition of our church, loosely affiliated group of churches as we are. They call it the brotherhood. There are people in the brotherhood of our churches who would tell you the last person to make it to heaven without getting baptized is a man we call the thief on the cross. Those people have a level of confidence I will never achieve. I'm always leery of the person who says, I have everything figured out and I know all of the answers, because the more I learn, the less I understand. But I will say, I think there's a good case to be made, right? So you look at the thief on the cross. It happens in Luke chapter 23. Jesus is hanging there on the cross. On one side of him is a criminal, on the other side of him is a criminal. Typically, you were executed for committing multiple, what we would call felonies. You were executed for murder. You were executed for treason. So these aren't good people. These are guys who've made some rough choices, and they deserve to be up there. And in Luke chapter 23, it says, one of the criminals who hung there hurled insults at him. Aren't you the Messiah? Save yourself and us. But the other criminal rebuked him. Don't you fear God, he said, since you are under the same sentence? We are punished justly, for we are getting what our deeds deserve. But this man has done nothing wrong. And then he said, Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom. And Jesus answered him, truly I tell you, today you will be with me in paradise. He didn't say a special prayer. He didn't learn the 10 Commandments. He hung there in misery and with his last gasping breath cried out for hope. D.L. Moody puts it this way. He says, the thief had nails through his hands so he could not work, a nail through each foot so he could not run errands for the Lord. He could not lift a hand or foot toward his salvation, and yet Christ offered him the gift of God and he took it. Christ threw him a passport and took him into paradise. That, my friends, is what grace is. He didn't lead him through the catechism. He didn't require him to memorize a list. He simply said, you have asked and you will receive. And so you can make the case. You can say, see, it worked for the thief on the cross. And I will tell you, yes, it did. But I will also tell you, that's not always how things go. And I will also tell you that sometimes we sound like a teenager. I don't know if you raised teenagers or you were a teenager at some point. Some of you were just born this age. I can't figure you out. But if you've ever raised a teenager like we're doing at our house, one of the most annoying questions one could ask is, do I have to? I never asked this question of my parents. I always just said, yes, sir, no, ma'am, and did as I was told. That is called a sin. That was forgiven December 25th, 1994. But I'll say things like, hey, you need to empty the dishwasher. Hey, you need to mow the grass. Hey, you need to. And they'll say, do I have to? And after I think about how hard I could squeeze their skull, I tell them if they want to live in this house, yes, they do. And sometimes when it comes to the discussion on baptism, someone will say, okay, so I see it, but do you think I really have to? And I want to tell you how much you sound like a 14-year-old who wants to not have to do the dishes. And that Jesus is offering you the gift of eternal life. And you're going, do I have to? When you're offered a gift, the first question is not, do I have to? The first question is, I don't deserve this. What did I do to receive this gift? And then you take that step. Today, that step is 75 steps. From the back of the room to the front, 75 steps is all you need to take. The men's changing room is right here. The women's changing room is right there. We have t-shirts and shorts available on the shelf for you. I'll baptize you in the clothes you're wearing. I don't care. But today's the day you're going to make that decision. I don't know. I really don't. I don't have a firm answer. Like I said, there are people who are confident in this. I'm not. I know that I follow a God who tells the stories like the story of the prodigal son, the one who ran away and who came home, and while he was still a long way off, his father ran to him and hugged him and kissed him. Why was his father running to him? Because he'd been waiting for him. I follow a God who tells the story of a person who owed millions of dollars in debt and who went to the loan officer and begged for forgiveness and was given that forgiveness. So I can tell you for a fact that I believe God forgives theological hardheads. I can tell you for a fact that I believe God forgives people who don't always understand. But I can also tell you for a fact that I believe, and we believe at Nicholson Christian Church, that the command is black and white, that the ultimate judge of this is not me, but God, and that the invitation is for today. So you don't have to. It's not a requirement. But that's not a decision. That's not the way I would want to make that decision. And I know you're hesitating. I know there's somebody in the room who's like, I'm just not sure, man. I just don't think it's for me. I don't think I'm ready. I don't think I have to. I always think of one of my college professors. He was a brilliant, wonderful man. His name was Jack Cottrell. And I don't know, most of you don't know Jack. But the way to best describe him was that sometimes the Amish would write him letters that was like, hey man, you need to calm down a little bit. He was incredibly, very conservative in his interpretation of Scripture. Like, there's Genghis Khan and then Jack, right? Like, he was way over there. He was strict by the book. But I love reading what he wrote about baptism so many times. Because he would tell you and he would say, listen, this is what we believe, that you should be baptized. And he said, but I will tell you that I believe there are exceptions to the rule. But he said, the reason there are exceptions is because the rule exists. But I'll never forget as a junior in college, watching that man stand in front of the class and tears well up in his eyes. And Jack Cottrell looking at each of the wannabe preachers in the room and saying, the day someone accuses you of being too liberal with grace is the day you've almost got it. And so I'll be liberal with it. And I'll give it freely to anyone who asks. But I'll stand in front of you today and I'll tell you the reason there are exceptions is because of the rule. This week I was with my friend Roy, and most of you know Roy, some of you know Roy, so he told me this story. If it's not entirely true, it's because he told the story. And but Roy told me about 15 years ago, they took a group down to a men's retreat. And one of the guys who went on that retreat was a man named Bill, and Bill's here today. And he said Bill wasn't sure what he thought, but he was skeptical, and he went on the retreat. And they started talking to him, and they started asking him questions. And Bill said, I'm not sure. I don't know. I don't have it all figured out. So over the course of a couple hours, the retreat keeps moving and people are talking and God is doing something and Bill starts asking more questions. And finally he says, you know what, I think if I could get a clear sign from God, a clear sign from God that I'm supposed to get baptized, I will get in the water today. And the way Roy tells the story is it had been cloudy for 24 hours. And at that moment, just one cloud parts and a ray of light shines on Bill's chair. And everyone in the campground goes, whoa. And Bill does the only reasonable thing anyone would do. He picks up his chair and he moves it a couple feet. And they're all looking at him and they're saying, you can't deny this. That's the sign you were looking for. And Bill says, listen, okay. But listen, I think there needs to be a preacher present at the baptism. And my preacher's not here. I don't think it can work. It can't work. And 3 guys in the crowd raise their hand and say, well, I'm a preacher at my church. Does that count? And Bill kind of takes his breath and he's, okay, what I meant to say was my preacher, whose name was also Bill. Bill Thompson was the senior minister here at the time. He said, my preacher, Bill, he's not here, so I'm not going to get baptized today because Bill's not here to witness it, and Bill needs to be here to see it. And at that moment, Roy says, a car comes rolling down the gravel driveway. Bill wasn't supposed to be there, but his plans had changed, and he was here. And everyone sees Bill Thompson get out of the car, and they look at Bill, and they say, there's your answer. And Bill says, no, you guys don't get it. You don't understand. And he walks away and he starts to go to his car. And as he's walking to his car to think this over, Roy says, what, do I need to hit you with a 2x4 to get you to get in the water? What's it going to take? And it's at that moment that Bill Thompson, the preacher, comes to Roy and pulls him aside and says, Roy, hitting people with a 2x4 is not a great evangelism strategy. But later that afternoon, Bill gets out of the car. And he realizes that it's time. And he walks into the water with our friend Dave and with Bill Thompson and all the other men there watching, gives his life to Jesus, buried with Christ, to rise again. And so today, you have questions. Today, you have concerns. You're waiting for a sign. You're waiting for the moment. You're waiting for the thing. Here's what I have to say to you. Come on up. I don't know your whole story. I don't know everything. But I know you've wondered, and I know you've waited. And I know that this moment is the one where you finally make that decision. And so the band's going to come back up, and Greg and Whitney and Finley, who've already decided today that they're going to make that decision, are going to come forward. And if you're a believer, you're going to get communion. You're going to take the bread and you're going to take the cup and remember his body broken for you. Remember his cup poured out for you. And if you're a guy, you're going to grab a shirt and some shorts from over there and you're going to join me right here in this changing room. If you're a lady, you're going to grab a shirt and some shorts from right there and you're going to go in that changing room. And then after we sing this song together, you're going to come forward. And you're going to come into the water. And you took those 75 steps. And you said, I believe with all my heart that it's time for me to give my life to Jesus. Make today that decision. Today the day. You see the black and white. Only God is the judge. But the invitation is for today. Father, I pray for Finley, I pray for Greg, and I pray for Whitney. I pray, God, in this moment that those 3 wouldn't be the only 3, that you would stir in the hearts and the minds of the people who have wondered and who have waited, that you would stir in the hearts and the minds of the people who have questions, who aren't yet sure, but who know that today is the day. God, even if today is not the day, that you would give them the courage after the service to walk up and to say, I'm ready. God, that you would give them the courage this week to send the email that says, I need to talk.
Alexis, can you move so I can see you, please? It's all right if we vibe over them. It's all right. They can't hear them anyway. If we want to play out, let's make it a musical thing. Yeah.
I'm a child of God. Yes, I am. I'm a child of God. Yes, I am. I'm a child of God. Yes, I am. I'm a child of God. Yes, I am.
We could ask them to stand with us. If somebody could ask them to stand with us, we'll sing this out.